I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute, an institute for the humanities and alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. The purpose of this special broadcast is to enjoy the first seminar of two, Intro to Practical Homeopathy with Mrs. Kathleen Prescott. And before we get caught up with herself, just one announcement concerning the college here, and I'm going to put it on the screen share. And that is this spring, so-called spring 20 and 26 semester, our language sessions. And we have the PDF for that somewhere along the way here. But in any case, throughout the week, and I won't read this verbatim, you can download the PDF, but throughout the week we have Spanish, Arabic, Latin, and Greek short sessions. These are free sessions. This is not a formal course. This is to wet your whistle for formal classes in those languages. And you can see the schedule. So week by week, we'll alternate between Arabic and Spanish on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we have the big guns on Tuesday and Thursday, Latin and Greek. So these sessions, they are free, but they are especially for people who are considering enrolling in our proper language courses. And also for those of you who have taken those courses here or elsewhere and you want to stay limber with some easy reading and speaking exercises, I encourage you to check out this PDF. Also, whilst we're on this site, you can check out Mrs. Kathleen Prescott's page under our class collaborations. You can see all the cast of characters here. And you can just click on homeopathy and that'll take you right over there. With that being seen, Chu, welcome, Mrs. Prescott. How are you doing? And how does this January find yourself?
Good. Thanks, Mr. Coleman. Thanks for having me. And yeah, January is cold, but we're having a freak respite of warm weather. So not complaining here as long as everything doesn't start budding and schizophrenic weather over here in New England, but otherwise ready to roll and have some good conversations and good freebies over here in Apocatastasis. So thanks for inviting me. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for anyone who's taking the time to listen tonight. I'm really excited to share this information with you. I'm really excited about motivating families to jump outside the box when it comes to treating their families or dealing with their family's healthcare. This is not to say that there isn't a time for a place for allopathic healthcare, but on the regular, we'd like to minimize that to the real life or death situations. So just a quick contrast to what we call allopathic or regular doctoring. That would be all of what we're used to receiving in the ER, in the pediatrician's office, in the medical clinics, in the CVS pharmacies, from the professionals in white lab coats and scrubs. All of that is allopathic healthcare, pharmaceutical drugs in a little orange bottle. We refer to that as allopathy. And then there is alternative medicine, which is what we refer to as pretty much everything else. So tonight we're here to explore an avenue of alternative medicine, whether you call it functional medicine or Ayurvedic medicine or whatever. And that's going to be homeopathy. So this is a funny little cartoon I have to share here with you, not to dog on allopathic doctors in any way. I love my pediatrician and like to just, keep him, for the emergencies, as I said. So I'm a mom, just to give you a little background. I'm a homeschool mom. I have an ex-career in healthcare in nursing for many, many years. But that was very discouraging to me in a lot of ways. And I can I kind of refound my love of healthcare with homeopathy again through Joette Calabrese, who I'm really excited to introduce you to, and whose information I'm kind of giving you, as Mr. Coleman said, just recently, wetting your whistle tonight with a lot of information in her courses. She designed some mini modules, including Gateway 1 and 2, which I'll be sharing some little tidbits with you to kind of spark that fire and that interest. And I hope that if you like what you hear tonight, you will continue on, explore to her website, JoetteCalabrese.com or JoetteCalabreseLearningCenter.com. And maybe Mr. Coleman, if he's kind enough, will place that in a description box below for you. This is a really great place to explore homeopathy as an alternative medicine. Why explore an alternative medicine? I want to breach on that really quickly. This is a quote that I absolutely love from William Osler. He is a medical doctor. He's actually the founder of Johns Hopkins Hospital, so well-renowned. He said, "The person who takes medicine must recover twice, once from the disease and then once from the medicine." And that couldn't be truer. This is the number one reason that we all think twice before we grab a drug, because we know it may fix the problem right now, but then we're going to live to, thanks be to God, we're going to live, but we're going to live to regret it. So wouldn't it be nice if it wasn't that stressful? We could just grab onto something that fixed the problem and didn't actually make us live to regret it. So that's where alternative medicine comes in. I feel like allopathy should really be the last line. Not, again, that it doesn't have a place. It does. But I believe that it should be the last place, unless it's, of course, an emergency. If you're having a heart attack and you're running, I'm not going to say to sit home and try alternative. Maybe try your alternative on the way to the hospital. So I just want to make sure that everyone is getting the right impression from me, that I'm all about alternative medicine, but I am not about ostracizing allopathy. I just believe in putting it in its. I think everybody should remember William Osler's quote, because this is the biggest reason to first, if you can, try something else, especially in the non-life-threatening issues of everyday basic first aid and illness, especially childhood illness. And as a mom of 7 and now 2 grandchildren, I'm becoming proficient in childhood illness, and doing it without allopathy has become second nature, and that's what I want to share. Okay, so that brings us to homeopathy and the introduction to it. And I know that a lot of people might be thinking homeopathy, home remedy, something you concoct in your kitchen or you pull from your garden and make a tincture out of. That couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. Homeopathy, as listed here on my slide, is a system of medicine that uses the law of similars. And I'm probably going to butcher this, Mr. Coleman. You can critique me if you'd like. Similar, similibus, serentur, means like cures like. And yes, I said cures, but those aren't my words. Let me tell you, those are many medical doctors and popular peoples from around the world words that I'm just reiterating. One of the people who said that, and I want to share with you really quickly, is Mahatma Gandhi. He said homeopathy cures a large percentage of cases than any other method of treatment and is beyond doubt safer and more economical and most complete medical. Just highlight a couple words in there. Not just cure. He said it, not me. He said cure. So yes, homeopathy has the ability to cure, but he also said safer, more economical, and most complete medical science. That's the stuff that just reaches out and grabs me and brings me in. I lived my whole early parenting life on vitamins and minerals and essential oils and good food. but nothing filled the niche of the need for medicine like homeopathy. And he just lists 3 of the biggest reasons why. It's cheap. Anybody could afford it. Even, I mean, I'm gifting myself by saying I'm middle class. I am definitely nowhere's near that level. So anybody can afford it. It is safe. It's gentle. I want to get into why in a little bit when I introduce you to the founder of homeopathy and how gentle it is. But it is gentle. It's not heroic. It's not extreme like chemo and radiation and antibiotics strip the gut of all the flora. And now you have food sensitivities and intolerances for clearing an abscess tonsil or something like that. Now it's very gentle. And another person who happened to say the word cure, which I know it's kind of like a bad thing to say outside of allopathy, but was John Forbes, another medical doctor. And he said it is utterly impossible to disregard the claims of homeopathy as an established form of practical medicine, not home remedy, not vitamins, medicine. As a great fact in the history of our art, we cannot ignore it. For not only do we see all our ordinary diseases cured, there's that ugly word again, cured homeopathically, but even all the severer and more dangerous diseases, which demand by the common method prompt and strong measures to prevent a fatal issue. So John Henry Forbes, if you're not noticing the medical doctors that put their stamp on homeopathy, it is the furthest thing from a home remedy or some sort of natural art. I want to go back to a couple slides just to give you a quick breakdown of the word homeopathy because of how often this word homeo is associated with home remedy. It actually comes from the Greek word, Mr. Coleman's going to slap my hand again, amaran. I don't know how to say that, but it means similar.
Let's see here. Amoyan.
Amoyan means similar or same. And this one over here, pathos, meaning suffering. So the word, you can think of pathology, illness, suffering. So really what it means is same suffering or similar illness. And this is how homeopathy shines apart from the rest of allopathy, because where allopathy uses the opposite effect to attempt to cure, homeopathy uses the same. And this is some really interesting stuff, actually, for any of you who like to geek out on science a little bit. I love it, actually. For example, Hahnemann said in his Organon of Medicine, aphorism 45, he said, the newer, stronger, similar disease extinguishes the previous one by taking over the part of the organism that it affected. And they actually cancel each other out. So he observed this and he said, note how a strong beam of light cancels out the lamp flame on the optic nerve. And I related this myself to like snow blindness. You know, when you go outside and you're in the snow shoveling and then you come inside in the dark and all of a sudden you're blind, you can't see a thing. Or when you turn the car light on and you're driving in the dark and you turn the light inside the vehicle on and all of a sudden you can't see the road. Or an even easier one is when sunlight cancels out moonlight. All of these scenarios are an example of a stronger, similar source canceling out a weaker one. And in the same way, homeopathy seeks to cure. It takes over with two diseases cannot actually occupy an organism at the exact same time. They have to either be one of weaker, one of greater, and the weaker one will fail and the greater one will win. And this is kind of how homeopathy works for anybody who actually cares about the nitty-gritty science stuff. But Hahnemann said, this is how men should cure. This is the way to cure because it goes deeper into the source of the illness, whereas working at it from a topical, superficial, or opposite approach, we really just kind of get a Band-Aid or a temporary relief. And we see this all the time in medicine where maybe it suppresses it a little bit and then comes back to haunt us later in life. So if anyone's interested in looking at an avenue of health treatment that has the potential to truly uproot an issue, homeopathy is a great place to look. And so I'm trying to entice you a little bit to learn about this incredibly interesting method of treatment. So I want to go past, one part that I did not mention was that it was cases inoculated with like disease halted the action of the first disease. And this is exactly why Jenner's smallpox vaccine worked in reducing smallpox. So we're not too foreign or unaccustomed to this type of thinking. Again, with mentioning that homeopathy is medicine and not a home remedy, I wanted to mention that it is regulated heavily. It's medicine. Therefore, it is regulated like medicine. We have in the United States, we have a agency called HPUS. It stands for Homeopathic Pharmacopoeia of the United States. And it answers to and kind of goes off of the guidelines of the International Council for Harmonization. And that is more of a global body. So these are, in addition to the FDA in the US. So these are 3 heavily regulating bodies that all of homeopathy stands to answer to. So this is where SAFE comes in addition to the very low to no risk of taking it, if you have a little bit of education. I always say anybody could do this, but it does take a little bit of knowledge, just like driving a car. I mean, our 16-year-old kids are doing it, and here in America anyway, in some states. It's just like, it's easier than passing high school, put it that way. But it does take a little bit of education. So I want to introduce you real quick to the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. He is a German medical doctor. Again, not a naturopath. He's a MD. And he lived from 1755 to 1843. And even though he was from Germany, he practiced mainly in France. He was incredibly frustrated by the practices of his day. For example, blistering and bloodletting and some very violent approaches to healthcare. I love this story. I don't love this story. I shouldn't say that, but this story gets me every single time when I hear of George Washington and how he died. You know, he had a sore throat. He woke up with a sore throat. And his epiglottis swelled to the point of obstructing his throat. That little thing that hangs in the back of your throat. For anybody who doesn't know what uvula, epiglottis. I always mix those two up. And he ended up suffocating and dying. But in the process, he underwent extreme suffering at the hands of the physicians of the day. They bled him, I believe, not once, not twice, but 3 times, about 40% of his blood volume, some like 80 liters or something like that. And they blistered him, and finally he just passed. Now, who knows if he was going to go anyways, but what a way to go. And it was situations like this that Hahnemann just said, I really believe that there is something out there more humane for my patients. He was really looking for something gentle and less violent. This type of treatment really cut him to the core. And that is what forced him to go outside of his practice and break down those walls and found something completely different and Thank God he did. He is quoted to have said in watching a patient, not George Washington, but a patient be bloodlet multiple times and then expire. And the reasoning for the physicians was, this is what the science compels us to do. And he responds with, science pales before this. I love that quote. It really kind of speaks to the man he is and makes me respect him. I kind of can relate to that. Maybe some of you can too. When you feel like the science of today, and especially post-pandemic that what just came out of in 2020, I feel like I want to repeat from the rooftops Hahnemann's words, science pales before this. Sometimes the treatment can be worse than the illness. And we've seen that with a lot of things recently. So that is what pushed Hahnemann over the edge. And hopefully, if you've felt pushed over the edge recently, you can fall on what he founded for you. Because it was for me and my family. And I think every family really needs to master this. So what else can I show you? I would love to tell you this story. I have this slide of Beethoven because you would not believe, once Hahnemann founded homeopathy, how what resistance it was met with. Of course, everything new is always rejected at first. But if it wasn't for the important people and the success that were brave enough really to grab onto it, maybe it wouldn't have lasted. The success spoke for itself, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But I love the story of Beethoven, who he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he had been around the ringer with the physicians, the mainstream physicians, and he was left for dead. Apparently, they had said they had nothing more for him. But he went to go see Hahnemann, and Hahnemann was able to cure him. And he attributed his life to Hahnemann, and in gratitude for that, he ends up writing a sonnet for him, or composing a piece for him. And I thought that was an incredible story to share with you. Another thing that helped homeopathy spread from the early times in the early 1800s was epidemics. Homeopathy was actually illegal in Australia and some places like England, although the Queen of England.
Victoria, was it?
I wanted to say Victoria, but I'm thinking Elizabeth for a second. It would have been the early 1800s.
Yeah, that'd be Vicky there.
That's Victoria. So I know that she was largely responsible for, and a Napoleon, but not the Napoleon. He was actually a regiment officer, was responsible for bringing it into England, but it's kind of riding on the underground. It's not mainstream by any means. But the epidemics were where the governments were like putting down their hair. Okay, bring them in. Bring in the quacks. See what they can do. And now you look at the rates here for this cholera epidemic in Austria. I said Australia before, excuse me. Statistics show that those with cholera who tried homeopathy had a mortality rate between 2.4 to 21%, whereas more than 50% of those with cholera died under conventional treatment. So you can see what they were up against and why they were so desperate. So it was situations like these that really forced homeopathy to the forefront. And I love Joette Calabrese. You heard me say her name once before, and I'll kind of tell you more about her at the end. But she's commonly quoted as having said, people don't usually come willingly to homeopathy. They are dying to get to homeopathy. They come crawling and begging to homeopathy. It's usually the last thing that they want to try because they've done everything else. And when nothing else is working for them, or if they've been bit by the hand that fed them, too many times, then they get a little brave and they step outside the box. So this is true in the history of homeopathy as well, unfortunately. Did I skip a slide? Yes, I was going to say that by 1862, homeopaths controlled 110 homeopathic hospitals, over 30 nursing homes, 62 orphan asylums and retirement homes, and 16 insane asylums in the United States. In the United States, actually, it flourished more than in Germany and France, where it originated. So that's an incredible number. And believe it or not, the insane asylums are really where homeopathy really shined, because I don't know if you know anything about the insane asylums. The treatment was truly, truly inhumane and not usually successful. So when homeopathy comes in, they're getting, I think, 1/3 it was quoted to have had cures, and up to 2/3 functioning. So that's a huge success rate. So homeopathy actually had made its headway in the US, and shockingly, I mean, it's making a comeback now, but I hadn't heard about it until like maybe 6 years ago. I mean, I was using it, but I didn't really realizing what I was using. I had these little tinctures from my naturopathic doctor, and it would say like, you know, liver detox. And so I would take 10 drops of the liver detox. I had no idea that it was homeopathic. And really, I didn't fall onto it until around 2009, when I was looking for something for the flu. And I had gotten the flu so bad. Actually, that was 2015. I got the flu so bad, I went to the doctor, and he gave me Tamiflu. And I ended up researching, because I really wasn't keen on taking drugs. I had never really taken them before. So I looked him up, and I was really freaked out by some of the side effects, and the efficacy was really low anyways. So I decided, never mind. And thank God I was at the butt end of it anyways. And I got better with two weeks of fatigue and like 20 pounds weight loss. I mean, it was hefty. So it was getting the flu really badly that said, I need something a little bit more than essential oils and vitamins to get me through something like that. So that's what really sent me into looking for a natural medicine. And when I found homeopathy and Joette Calabrese, and now, oh my gosh, it's pretty much all I've used since. So I've already given you, here's what I call the ABCs of homeopathy. This is aconite, belladonna, and chamomilla. 3 homeopathics that are excellent for fevers. Every home with children in them, or anyone for that matter, but especially children, should have them in there. And Hahnemann was well known for using these throughout epidemics. And we use them today constantly. Like literally, that's why I call them the ABCs of homeopathy. These are the first 3 remedies aside from arnica. Almost everybody's heard of arnica. So it should stand here right next to aconite. But these 3 remedies literally could kick off anybody's homeopathic experience quite beautifully. But the reason why I mentioned fevers is because if you can get through fevers naturally, you can get through anything. There's a big hype and fear around fever. If you could treat that at home, I feel like you're smooth sailing. So these are 3 remedies that were there at the beginning, and they're there now, and you should know about them. So that's why I picked a slide to show you today. And materia medica, if you're wondering about that, it means medicinal material. Did I interpret that right, Mr. Coleman?
That sounds good to me. Yes, that sounds pretty.
Medicinal materials. So basically, it's a physician's textbook of drugs. It's homeopathic remedies, which I don't know if I mentioned yet. What is a homeopathic per se? I've given you a little background on how it works and what it's based on, but what is it? Here is the point where I should really tell you that where it comes from. And it's usually based off of or sourced from something like animal, plant, or mineral, but it can also come from diseased matter in the form of a nosode. And it can also come from a drug, a pharmaceutical drug like nitroglycerin has been made into a homeopathic called glenoidum. And for the same reasons that you would take nitroglycerin for heart attack, stroke, heat flushing, all of those symptoms, the homeopathic remedy would treat without the risk of side effect. Because as I will show you in a little bit, homeopathy works through a method called potentization, which is heavily diluted or attenuated. People are a little bit more familiar with that term. And so it removes all the toxicity levels from the element and leaves only remedial. So any one of, for example, this aconite here comes from a deadly plant called monk's hood. And if you were to ingest this in its raw form, it would probably be no bueno for you. But in a highly diluted and potentized and succussed process, it becomes very gentle and very effective at treating things like it would cause in its raw form. So you might get a fever if you ingested this. You might be really chilly and cold and in a frenzy of shock and fright and shaking with fear. All of these things, of these aspects of delirium, can come on. And so if you're experiencing any of these like symptoms, like for example, if you got into a car accident and all of a sudden you're in shock and your words are slowed and you're cold and clammy and you're shaky, a dose of aconite, take that right down, and very beautifully. I used that recently for myself. I was in a fender bender and had no idea it was any sort of shock until one of my friends asked me a question. I didn't know the answer. It was a basic question. I just was kind of deer caught in headlights. And she was like, "You need aconite." And I was like, "Of course I do." Aconite is something we learn as we start to use homeopathy down the road. But this is just to give you an idea of a plant that becomes potentized and very applicable in daily life. So average fevers, colds. I love this for colds, or anytime you're feeling hairy, it can halt anything that comes on out of the blue. Like, you ever go out and you come home and you're like, "Well, I'm coming down with something," but you have no symptoms. You just know it. But that's the moment I take aconite. And quite honestly, most of the times when I do that, the next day I hump right over it. And then I find out that everybody I was hanging out with at the party all of a sudden has norovirus, and I was okay. I can't tell you how many times something like this has happened. So this is a remedy everybody should definitely get to know. And belladonna is also a deadly nightshade. And camellia is simple, easy, sweet. It's get out of the deadlies and the scaries. They're not always from very scary sources. Everybody knows German chamomile, the flower we love to steep our tea in. So that potentized too. Works wonders for fevers, teething babies, all sorts of extreme pain. So this is another wonderful remedy to have on and get to know. But so Materia Medica, that's a physician's textbook of all of these medicines and all of their, what they call keynotes and aspects. So we like to keep, Joette actually makes a phenomenal one for busy families, because these physicians ones are very hard for the average person to read. So Joette makes this one for busy families that is very easy to read. Let's see if I can pull up aconite just to give you an example. We keep these types of things around. It's just a page that gives you the plant, the name, and some keynotes. And this says Quick Shock right there. So that's just an example of a little manual that Joette Calabrese makes it really easy for families. And I'm going to tell you about practical homeopathy and how I think she co-opted that term, but that's really how homeopathy gets put into the hands of the family. Because as I pointed out so far, it's pretty much all in the hands of medical doctors and experienced medical professionals. So once you know the remedy, once you've picked the remedy, we get to, well, what potency and why are all these little numbers after the Latin name? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, if you're still with me, and why they all have these letters afterwards, and it coincides with how homeopathy is made. So I'm going to kind of cram those two ideas together, if you can hang with me. I'm not losing you. How are we doing, Mr. Coleman? Is this a little too much so far? Should I dumb it down a little bit, or?
No, so far so good there. That's great. And I will put down below also Joette Calabrese's website for everyone to take a look at, besides Mrs. Prescott's here and related links.
Thank you very much. So here we have the letters. We have an X, which represents the decimal scale of 10, a lowercase c, which represents the centesimal scale of 100, and LM potencies are largely practitioner use. It's nothing you would ever really dabble in as a lay family. And K represents a European form of or scale. It's called the Korsakovian method. It's essentially the same as a C or a CK. Sometimes you can see them in different. I don't think I have an example of one, but sometimes you can see them listed as either or. They're equal. Excuse me. So when you take, how homeopathic is made, when you take a mother tincture, which is listed by this Q or the theta symbol, or MT would stand for the mother tincture, which is the element in its crude form put in an alcohol tincture. So a lot of the home remedies are made like this. Elderberry's common, maybe St. John's wort, stuff like that. But you would take a drop, you wouldn't, a pharmacy would, single drop of that original source would be put into a bottle of 9 drops of water if it's in the decimal scale, or 99 drops of water if you are working on the centesimal scale. And then that would be succussed rapidly, kind of like you would see blood vials in a lab being shaken so that they do not coagulate. This changes the molecular composition of this element, this substance. And that is done the number of times that you see on the bottle. So for example, this is a 30C potency. It has been done 30 times. 30 times to the 100th power. And if it's a 3x, then it has been done 3 times to the 10th power. It's that simple. What does this mean to you? Well, it really signifies its intensity of application. Does it mean that 200 is stronger? Yes, sometimes. Does it mean that 3 is weaker? Not necessarily. I have this slide here that I want to share with you from Boron, which is a leading manufacturer in homeopathy, a trusted one. They are stationed in France, but now they have a Boron USA, so they also manufacture in the US. And they have this great slide to show you how to choose the right potency of your remedy. And any person can walk into a CVS or a natural foods market, a Sprouts, actually they're all over Amazon too, and choose the remedy because of practical homeopathy. This couldn't be possible if it was not for practical homeopathy. Classical homeopathy is largely left in the hands of practitioners, but what we're talking about right now is practical homeopathy, and I'll break that down for you in a little bit. But right now, this chart is showing you that the lower potencies are more localized. So think lower localized. For example, something you could see, touch, and feel. Like I have a sty in my eye, or a black eye, or a cyst right here, or I don't know, I can't think of a wart, or pain right here in my thumb, and it's not too bad. But if it's intense or generalized, say, or mental, for like anxiety or Lyme's, or body aches and pains throughout, you're going to want more of a 30 or a 200C. So the higher potencies. The practitioners, I'm a student practitioner, so I don't get to call myself that yet. But the practitioners say that the families should stick between the 3, 6, 9s and 30s and 200s for choosing homeopathics, that they should really have practitioner help or guidance, consulting when using the other ones. It's not that you could hurt yourself, but you could do it wrong, waste your money or your time, or make some uncomfortable feelings if you used it willy-nilly or repeatedly without cause. So that's a little cue on how the chaotic numbers and letter systems work. Here's another picture that kind of gives you, here's the first vial we have with the mother tincture. A drop of that gets added to 99 parts water and alcohol to create a 1/100th potency. That done twice creates a 2C potency, and that done thrice would create a 3C. I hope I haven't blown your mind right now, and I hope you're kind of interested and I haven't geeked out on it too much for you. I do intend to get a little bit more practical every day in part 2, but rather than starting there and working backwards to what is this stuff, I decided to start here. Can I use you, Mr. Coleman, to ask some questions to kind of gauge what you think the audience might be thinking at this point?
Sure thing. Let me get queued up here on the, there we go. Yeah, so, well, a few things that struck me, from a historical point of view is the mention of Germany, and there's a whole historical talk we can have someday, but I don't know how many of the audience are quite plugged into that. We'll have to set up proper. But in terms of practical homeopathy, I wonder if you could lay out the relationship maybe of homeopathy in general and to distinguish it from practical homeopathy. So is it licensed like allopathy is, or could you develop that a little bit more? That's one question I would have, and I think
that's
maybe
a good
others.
question. So is it licensed? As we have seen so far, it's mostly classical homeopathy has been mostly used by medical professionals, so doctors. So it's not the fact that the medicine is licensed, though it's regulated, so it cannot be sold to the public without undergoing the same, actually more so, it's more heavily regulated than most drugs. Which is why Mahatma Gandhi said true science when it comes to, but it's the practitioner that would be licensed, and at the level of their particular education. For example, if a medical doctor is prescribing or utilizing homeopathy, then he would be licensed as a medical doctor. If a nurse practitioner is using it, then it would be the licensing of the nurse practitioner. If a practical homeopath or a practitioner or a consultant, then they have no medical background whatsoever, like myself. They have, I have some nursing experience, but not real. Like, we don't have a license to practice. They would merely have a knowledge of the homeopathic remedies and what symptoms it could be used for. And so you would consult with them on what conditions have been known to be used for these homeopathic medicines so that you could treat yourself. So I hope that answers that question, that the level of licensing depends on the practitioner that you're seeking this out. I mean, some naturopathics are utilizing homeopathy, so obviously it would be an ND. That would be the level of their license. Sometimes chiropractors.
Yes, another question I have is, what is the relationship of homeopathy to nutrition? Is it simply, much like allopathy, is it simply one has recourse to in the case of disease where there is some disruption, or is there a, to use an old-fashioned word, a prophylactic aspect to homeopathy? What is the relationship of homeopathy to nutrition?
Not much, Mr. Coleman. That's a really good question. Nobody's really asked that in my experience, but in my experience in education, there's not much difference. This is medicine. Nutrition is sustenance. You need it. It's like nutrition is food. This is medicine. One keeps you healthy so that you do not get sick. This is what you take when you're sick. This is literally an alternative to pharmaceutical medicine, in the same way that, I mean, other than vaccinations, you don't really take medicine, allopathic medicines, prophylactically, do you? You take it when you get sick, and homeopathy is the exact same. So no, I can't say that there's any connection between nutrition and homeopathy. You had another question about classical versus practical, and I promised to expound on that a little bit. Classical homeopathy refers to the Hahnemannian homeopathy of its origin, used by medical practitioners and nobody else. Always learned men in the field of science utilizing it. And practical homeopathy, as coined by the term Joette Calabrese, is a term coined by Joette Calabrese, rather, is utilizing protocols by medical doctors throughout the world, largely Europe, India, through the French protocols, through the Banerjee protocols in India. People might be familiar with that. And physicians around the world seeing that this same remedy worked for this same condition in about 85% of all peoples. So whereas classical homeopathy takes a very in-depth analyzation of the whole person, looking for something they call the similum, where all the symptoms that the patient is experiencing from all aspects of their life, and incorporates things like how they sleep and what color hair they have and whether they prefer chocolate or hot tea or cold tea, spicy food or fatty foods, and carbs or creams. All of these things would be taken into consideration by a classical homeopath. And that's pretty unusable in the field as far as something like acutes. Let's say you get a burn, a 3rd-degree burn, and you're headed off to the hospital, or you got into an accident, there's no time for anything like that. So doctors have tracked their clinical experience and seen the patterns and developed what they call protocols, where 85% of the time, this is the remedy we're using every time it's an infection of the eye. This is the remedy we're using every time it's an infection of the skin, type of thing. And so that was huge for homeopathy, because it's what put it in the hands of the lay people like me, moms, who I can say, oh, arnicas for bumps and bruises, got it. Give that to my baby, because he just fell down and banged up his knee pretty bad. This is what makes it so that, and boron is largely responsible for putting it in our hands. And in CVS and manufacturing it into something that's so usable, like these little plastic vials of sugar pellets. And I did want to mention before, and I skipped over that, if you don't mind me inserting it right now. I love that Mary Poppins saying a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And it's so true with homeopathics, because that original mother tincture can be administered to the patient through a dropper of just water or water and alcohol mixture, and those are liquid doses, or it can be administered via a little sugar pellet. So the medicine is on these tiny little, I don't know if you can kind of see it in there. It's a sugar pellet. It makes it very easy to administer to kids and the elderly. And here was the best. I had a couple of years ago a gastric flu going through my house, and there was such a violent vomiting that even water, I couldn't get my kids to hold down water. I would try to put some medicine in water and get them to drink it, and they would blow it right back up. I couldn't get them to take the slightest bit of anything on the tongue, or it would all start over again. But I could put that little sugar pellet in their mouth, and they could hold that. It was amazing. And then it would stop, and it would slow, and there would be like a larger gap in between the episodes of vomiting. And when their nausea started coming back, I would give it again. And it's very easy. Practical homeopathy is very easy for the average anybody because it's symptom led. You don't have to have a pediatrician telling you, oh, this needs to be taken every 3 hours. Although there are protocols that tell you this is every 3 hours and this is twice a day. Thanks to a lot of clinical doctors who have written that out for us and given us prescriptions to use. But for the most part, homeopathy is symptom led. So you can just listen to your body. And if the intensity meets the need, you can give it. And as so long as when you don't need it, you don't take it, you're fine. You cannot take too much or overdose. And another thing I need to mention with safety is I really try not to keep absolutely anything in my house that if my kids eat it, they could die. I don't keep Tylenol because of the risk of liver failure. I don't keep bleach or Windex or any of that stuff. Anything that they can't eat, and I try not to keep it beside the desk, my computer. My daughter got in, it's sugar. Kids tend to want it. There's no difficulty getting the meds down them. But my daughter got into it and she just kind of wiped out like 3 bottles of sugar pellets. And I kind of freaked out. I was like, oh gosh, what's that going to do? And I mean, I called poison control, and poison control didn't really know what to do at first, but I got the most blessed lady at the other end. She said, hold on one second, ma'am. And she went and did a little research, and she gets back on and she goes, I'm sorry. But it seems like with the heavily diluted dose that your child would have received, it's not going to do any harm. And I was like so relieved. And it matched up with all the education that I had on it, but I just needed to hear that. And I was very thankful for her. She was like a little angel. But that's the thing. If you just take it once, it's not going to do anything. You would have to take it every single day over and over with no symptom for it to treat, to cause any little problem. And the most that you would have, if you remember back to the law of similars, that which can cause symptoms in a healthy person can cure them in an ill person. But if you do not have the symptoms and you just kept taking them, it might cause them. So it might cause some stomach upset if you kept taking, say, tobacco, for example, is a common homeopathic remedy used for motion sickness. If you think of the effects that would come from smoking too much tobacco, I don't know, we're probably too young to remember this, Mr. Coleman, but we've heard of the days where if a dad caught sight of a kid stealing a smoke or a cigar, what would he do to him?
Make him smoke the whole box.
We all know it. See, we weren't alive for this time, but we all know it, right? You'd have to smoke that whole box, sonny, and stand there and watch the whole thing. So what happens? What is he trying to do to him, Dad?
Sour him on the smokes.
He's trying to sour on him. How's he gonna do that? What's gonna happen to him if he smokes the whole pack of cigarettes?
You get nauseous.
Oh, you're so getting nauseous. You might green in the face, and you might upchuck. So if you think of all of the effects that tobacco might cause in a healthy person, someone who's suffering from nauseousness or motion sickness, the essence of tobacco would slow it, which is pretty cool. And if you think of something else we all know the effects of really well, our beloved coffee. I know you love coffee as much as I do, Mr. Have you ever drank, I don't know, 3-4 cups in a day? What happens if you drink too much coffee?
Oh, you get jittery and on edge, really.
Absolutely. Jittery and on edge. Maybe even a little shaky. Sometimes if I put an espresso shot in my coffee and I'm holding the pen, I'm like, woo. So for someone who is hyperactive, someone who can't sleep because of thoughts racing in their head, the essence of coffea cruda, which is essentially just the essence of coffee diluted, would slow that. So you see kind of how it's working, this law of similars, and why it's safe and yet effective. I hope I've established that a little bit. And I love Boiron because they've made them so portable, these homeopathic remedies, that you could literally take them anywhere. I keep them in my car, in my diaper bag, in my purse. You do not need a bottle of water to swig down your medicine. They melt right in your mouth. You could keep them at home in your medicine cabinet, which I do. I keep them absolutely everywhere. And there's really no scenario that you couldn't take them. Infants, even, who you might be afraid that tiny little pellet could choke them, you can even mix the little pellet in an ounce of water and give them a little Tylenol syringe, a 5 milliliter syringe of the water liquid. So it's very user friendly for moms and for families. And that's another reason I love this stuff. It's just so easy. So here's the company Boron I keep mentioning. These homeopathics are extremely cost effective. Like I mentioned, here's a combination remedy for postnasal drip and scratchy throat, made from Hydrostasis canadensis in a 6C, so a low potency. You could think, if you feel scratchy throat, you could touch it and feel it. It's right here, kind of. Here's a good picture with the little sugar pellets here. And this is something that I keep in my medicine cabinet in addition to some cold and flu, some allergy stuff. These things have really taken the guesswork out of homeopathy for us. And this is practical homeopathy, to answer your previous question, in action. This is the ease of it. All the work of clinical doctors' experience and classical homeopaths, putting that clinical data, 150 years almost of clinical data. This is no new animal here that we're talking about, to work so that everybody can use it on the front line. And that's you and that's me. It's not the pediatricians. We're the first ones that see. You see it in yourself. I see it in my kids. So if we can hit it at the front line, we might make some headway. And if you could say at a hospital these days, even better. Leave that for, time to be vented or something. So this is an example of what we call a combination remedy. You can find it at any local pharmacy, Amazon, pretty much anywhere. And as I mentioned multiple times, Joette Calabrese, my favorite source for learning about homeopathy. If any of this is at all intriguing, I really would love to encourage you to not just join part 2 for some really good combination remedies to clean out your medicine cabinet and replace with safer options. Excuse me, but to take one of her courses. This woman, she's like 73 years old. She's been practicing homeopathy. She's a homeopath for 40 years. She's a homeschool mom. She's Italian. She's Catholic. She's a spitfire. She is so exciting to learn from. She is such a good teacher, and she makes everything user-friendly, mainly for moms. She's targeting moms, but all families and all people who just want to stay off of drugs. Remember that. Are you old enough for this, Mr. Coleman? I think this was a 90s commercial. Dare to keep kids off drugs.
Oh no, Dare was a program in the schools. It was commercials, but it was also a 2 or 3 year program. I well remember it. I mean, that's what everyone would do growing up in high school, right? You'd smoke pot with your Dare shirt on. That was the.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Oh yeah, that was you'd and then you'd know nothing about drugs or alcohol, but by the time you were done with the Dare program, you were as good as a street dealer. So,
unreal.
Anyway,
I'll take your word for it, because I didn't make it to public school, but 4 months out of my life. So that is hysterical to me. But I always thought we should bring back those commercials. Maybe not, because they're not doing much good apparently. But we dare to keep families off drugs today. So if you dare to keep families off drugs, homeopathy is an excellent way to do it. And Joette is a great learning source. So is RFK's Whole Health Now. He's largely supported a program called Whole Health Now with a homeopath named Lori Grossman. And I have some slides that she shares a lot of free stuff. She's a very good homeopath. I don't enjoy her as much as I do Joette Calabrese, because Joette is just such a spitfire of a personality that she keeps me awake, which I hope I've done too. But she keeps me awake, and I really enjoy learning from her. She's just such a wealth of knowledge. And 40 years. I mean, she's been practicing for 40 years. She's also been to India, Calcutta, India multiple times, where she derived tons of protocols from the Banerjee doctors, which is a family of medical doctors that had been practicing for 150 years. And she pulled so many protocols. This is, again, practical homeopathy in action, protocols from them on how to use homeopathy in everyday acutes, first aid, even chronic illness, and believe it or not, even cancer. The Banerjee doctors were well known for going around the world and sharing the studies that they had done on using homeopathics for cancer. So the stuff has been around the block and back. And if you want to learn about it, she's your stop. And I do hope to teach her Gateway to Homeopathy, to Practical Homeopathy, Part 1 and 2. It's a guided curriculum, which she herself, in video-led instructions and little assessments at the end to make sure you've regurgitated the information properly. It's very simple. Any mom can do it. I think I spent maybe an extra 6 hours a week for 6 weeks to take this Gateway course of hers. And it was $60. You cannot beat that. Less than $10 an hour. And then you connect with the study group, with, in this case, would be us. We would meet here on Apocatastasis. I would be, actually, Mr. John Coleman would be your host, and I would be your guide through this program, having taken it many times myself, and now an instructor of it. Would be more than happy to escort you through this course. And it's really great because the study group, you get to ask questions where you don't get that in the curriculum. And I can help answer answer the questions that you might have. So kind of like today, how at the end of it, I'm going to ask through Mr. Coleman any more questions. Then we're gonna, I had a little game intended. If you want to pull up the slides for me, Mr. Coleman, we can do that. But first I'm gonna see if you have any more questions that you could ask on behalf of the audience.
Yes, thank you for that. One question I have remaining is, what is the relationship of modern homeopathy to other, maybe non-Western medical systems? You had mentioned, now, I don't mean systems in the kind of the bureaucratic sense we often associate with that word, but modalities, I guess, is the proper term. Whether it's Chinese medicine, or you mentioned this family from India, or I don't know, any African medicines, or whatever the case may be. What is the interaction? Do you often hear an influence of different practices, or is this homeopathy its own proper, I suppose, Western thing?
That's another really good question. You're good at this, Mr. Coleman. So I guess we would use the word paradigm. Homeopathy is probably its own paradigm, separate from Eastern or Western medicine. Although if I had to connect it to any, it would probably be Western medicine and pharmaceuticals, because it functions hugely off of a diagnosis from medical doctors, clinical experience, and data from imagery and like X-ray, and it coincides nicely with allopathic medicine. Where it differs from allopathic medicine is in the medicine. So it's safer. I don't have, like William Osler said, that the person who has to take medicine has to recover twice. We skip that second step with homeopathy because there is generally no side effect. And I say generally, meaning that I'm sure it could happen, but it just doesn't. So it's not like Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, or supplementation and nutrition, or naturopathy. The only thing it has in common with that is that it's natural and safe. But most of those things are not pharmaceutically regulated. It doesn't work like medicine. It's not taken like medicine. It can be taken preventatively, prophylactically, supplementally. This is not like that at all. And it's also not in its crude form. As I pointed out before, remember with the dilution phases, the original substance is natural medicine is mostly the original substance, how you find that substance in nature. But pharmacologically, this natural substance has been altered. Does that make sense? And so it bounces back to more of like a Western medicine, although it originated in Europe. So that's hard to answer. I hope I have a little bit. It really is its own paradigm, and I'm going to stick with that.
Great. Excellent. And did you want these slides up here? Did you say you want that down?
Well, I think I'm going to save that, if you don't mind, for the next one, because I've held you for a little over an hour, and I'm going to let you run and then save that for next time. I have a little game so you can see how homeopathy works yourself by kind of matching the symptom to the medicine, and you can do it yourself. I'm going to kind of give you some keynotes of each medicine, and I will give you a case. I will tell you what my issue is, and you will tell me which one you're going to give me. You're going to be my I don't want to say doctor, because it's really not what we're doing. What would you be? You'd be my brother. You are my brother, and I come to you and I'm like, brother, I got a headache here. Oh, it's so bad. The pressure's like right here. I can't even think. And I would give you, you'd be like, oh, is your mouth really dry, or are you thirsty? No, don't give me anything. Get out of here. And say, wow, she's irritable. So you look at the little medicine, says headache with irritability. And you're like, that's the one for you, sis. So we're going to play a little game based off of that, where I give you all the slides and you can match it to the case or the symptom. And you see just how easy this really could be for absolutely anybody, even you and me. So we'll save that for next time. And I hope somebody does join us next time, because we really could use some people to give us a little shine into their medicine cabinet. Tell us what kind of drugs you got hiding in there and what would be a good alternative to replace it for, like, for example, Pepto-Bismol, Claritin, Flonase. What's another common one, Mr. Coleman?
Ozempic. Hey, that's a popular one now.
Ozempic.
Wegovy, all of these Frankenstein.
Oh my gosh, I've been watching too many commercials. So yeah, that's what we're going to do next week. So somebody join us. We got to have somebody's medicine cabinet to raid, or it's going to be yours, Mr. Coleman.
Very good. Very good. So I will have I'll tell everyone right now, our next session, number 2 of 2, is going to be on Monday, the 16th of February at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I will have a link to Mrs. Prescott's site down below with that information there, and also a sign-up form. And it'll be interactive, as our first session was there. And there will also be additional homeopathy resources, news stories, articles, PDFs, whatever, on that site as well. So there's a lot of material to get into, and that site, Mrs. Prescott's site, is a great place to set out from. And indeed, if we get enough feedback, not just for this upcoming conclusion to the seminars, but indeed for a proper course, we'll run that. So stay in touch with us with that and let us know your interests there. And please God, we will have much more of this going forward. And to you, Mrs. Prescott, thank you for your insights and your enthusiasm for this very necessary, very democratic approach to medicine. Thank you so much.